Picture this, 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and I'm watching some HOA goon with a reciprocating saw literally cutting through my waterline. The screech of metal on metal echoed across the lake, sparks flying onto my gravel driveway while a guy in a cheap suit stood there filming it like he was documenting some kind of victory. That was the moment I realized Veronica Brightwell, our HOA president and professional nightmare, had just made the biggest mistake of her life. See, I'm Garrett Thornfield. I spent 40 years designing water systems for this entire county. I just wanted to retire peacefully in my lakefront cabin, the place where I scattered my wife Martha's ashes. But Veronica decided my rustic property was dragging down her precious neighborhood values. She had no idea that every drop of water flowing into her $800,000 McMansion had to pass through pipes I legally controlled. Now, before you start typing, just sue her. Trust me. I had something far more satisfying planned. What would you do in my situation? And where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. But let me back up and tell you how this whole mess started. 3 months earlier, I was living the retirement dream. Every morning I'd walk down to my dock with a steaming cup of coffee, breathing in that crisp mix of pine needles and lake water that money can't buy. The crunch of gravel under my boots, the weathered cedar siding that needed paint but had character. This wasn't some fancy resort. This was home. Martha and I had found the cabin back in the 1960s during our last anniversary trip. She fell in love with the loons calling it dawn, the way morning mist danced across the water. After 40 years of managing municipal water systems for Clearbrook County, designing every major pipeline, troubleshooting pressure problems that stumped other engineers, I figured I'd earned some peace. Martha passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. I scattered her ashes from that dock on a morning just like the ones we had shared through 37 years of marriage. The cabin was supposed to be our sanctuary. After she died, it became my lifeline to sanity. Enter Veronica Brightwell. Picture the most entitled person you've ever met. Multiply that by 10, then give her a law degree and an $800,000 lakefront McMansion. That's Veronica. She drives a white BMW she parks diagonally across 2 spaces, always dressed like she's headed to court, even when she's just checking her mailbox. And that clipboard? Sweet mercy. She treats it like other people treat Holy Scripture. For 8 years, she had run the Whisper Lake Estates HOA like her personal fiefdom. 12 board members, but let's be honest, they were more like her royal court, nodding along to whatever decree she issued that week. The first time I saw her in action was at a community barbecue. Some poor guy's sprinkler was watering his driveway along with his lawn. Honest mistake, happens to everyone. Veronica marched over with her clipboard, actually wrote him a citation, and then announced loudly enough for everyone to hear that property maintenance standards exist for a reason. I should have known right then I'd be in her crosshairs. The trouble started when I attended my first, and what I thought would be my last, HOA meeting. I figured I should be neighborly. Biggest mistake of my retirement. The moment I walked into that community center, Veronica's eyes locked onto me like a radar system targeting an incoming threat. "Oh," she said, not even bothering to hide her disdain. "You must be the gentleman with the rustic cabin." She said rustic, like I was harboring a methamphetamine operation. The meeting was everything you'd expect from a power-hungry control freak with too much time on her hands. 45 minutes on proper mailbox heights. Another 20 about unauthorized bird feeders attracting undesirable wildlife. Then came the moment that changed everything. "We need to address water usage compliance," Veronica announced, pulling out a thick folder that looked official but smelled like pure fabrication. Properties built before 1985 are required to limit consumption to 200 gallons. This regulation protects our community aquifer from depletion. Her eyes found mine across the room. Some residents are using well water and lake access, which constitutes a double violation of our conservation covenant. Now, I'd spent 4 decades in water management. Back in my early days, I learned that developers often write HOA rules without understanding actual water law. Grandfathered properties usually can't be retroactively bound by covenants they never agreed to. But before I could point this out, she steamrolled into the next agenda item. The meeting ended with her approaching me directly. "Mr. Thornfield," she said, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. I do hope you'll bring your usage into compliance voluntarily. It would be unfortunate if we had to take more decisive action. 2 weeks later, the certified letter arrived. $5,000 in water violation fines, based on an emergency board vote that broke every rule of proper HOA governance. 30 days to pay up and install monitoring equipment, or face a utility shutoff. That's when I realized this wasn't about water conservation or property values. This was about power and control, about forcing out anyone who didn't fit Veronica Brightwell's vision of lakefront perfection. She'd picked the wrong old engineer to intimidate. You know that feeling when someone pokes a sleeping bear? Well, Veronica was about to find out what happens when you mess with a retired engineer who's got nothing but time and 40 years of technical expertise. Her first real move came exactly 2 weeks after that threatening letter. I was out on my dock at sunrise, enjoying the smell of coffee mixing with morning mist, when I heard the rumble of diesel engines echoing across the water. 3 trucks pulled into my driveway at 7 a.m. sharp, because apparently Veronica believes in psychological warfare through sleep deprivation. Out stepped 2 guys in matching polo shirts carrying clipboards and official-looking badges. Behind them, Veronica emerged from her BMW like a general surveying a battlefield. The sound of truck doors slamming was probably the most aggressive noise this peaceful lake had heard in years. "Mr. Thornfield," she called out, her voice carrying that fake, sweet tone people use when they're about to ruin your day. "These are certified water compliance inspectors. We're here to install monitoring equipment on your well pump." I walked over, still holding my coffee mug. "Morning, Veronica. You got a warrant for that." She actually pulled out a laminated document. This woman laminated everything, like she was preserving historical artifacts. "The HOA covenant grants us access rights for utilities inspection. It's all perfectly legal." Now, I had read that covenant front to back after her little meeting stunt. What she was waving around was about as legally binding as a grocery list. But her inspectors were already unloading power tools and heading toward my well house. For the next hour, I got to listen to the delightful sound of drilling and hammering while these jokers installed flow meters on equipment they clearly didn't understand. The older guy kept staring at my pressure tank like it was alien technology. The younger one actually asked if I knew where the water came out. I'd spent 40 years fixing problems caused by exactly this kind of amateur hour nonsense. While they worked, my neighbor Hazel Murphy shuffled over with a thermos of coffee.